Hi, I'm Jackson Bliss, and this is the Dream Pop Origami channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk about one of the most difficult things in the whole world: how to be happy. So I should start this video by saying that I am by no means a guru. I am not a self-help writer, nor do I claim to be. I am not a licensed professional. But one thing I'm pretty good at being happy. And this is kind of a remarkable skill in a way, and the older I get, the more I've realized this. Because while lots of people I know have more money, more resources, more things in their life than I do, many of them are not that happy. And some of my friends who have the least are sometimes the happiest people. So I should just state from the very beginning that I'm just a simple human being, an artist, a writer, a public intellectual, an avid traveler, a mixed race, fiction writer, nonfiction writer who knows how to be happy. So if this video helps you in any way, awesome. Number 1. Learn how to love without expectation. I know that's hard. I know that's one of the hardest things in the whole world. But I think when we can love without expectation, without hoping to get something back, without needing to get something back, without investing our love as something that gets returned, as looking at love as some type of emotional investment where we deposit our love in order to get it back. When we don't do those things, I think we can love more deeply, more meaningfully, and be truly transformed by the love we give others and the love that we receive. To me, learning to love this world, learning to love the people in this world gives our life meaning. And one of the most important things I think to being happy is feeling like your life has meaning. This doesn't mean you have to love everyone. You don't have to go and love Nazis or white nationalists or misogynists or terrible people. You can choose who you love. You can decide to love certain people in your life. But the need to love, the importance of loving, is axiomatic to what it means to be human. And a lot of us are not loving anyone or anything at all. Next, love is a complete action by itself. By you simply loving the world you're in, or some part of the world you're in, by you loving someone or something, that is a complete action. You don't need anything else. Simply loving is enough. Next, love heals. When you love someone, when you love something, that act of loving can heal the pain inside of you. When you love your little baby dog, or love a sunset, or love walking on the beach, or love a book you're reading, or love a class you're teaching, or love something in your life, that gives your life meaning. And your awareness of your own love, your ability to harness your love, can be one of the ways that you heal. Next, be courageous. Love openly. Be honest. Be affectionate. Not to everyone, of course, but learning to be open, learning to be courageous, learning to love simply for the sake of loving is one of the greatest life skills. If you get hurt when you love someone, that doesn't mean you made a mistake. It means you met someone who's not ready for you, who's not right for you, who doesn't know how to appreciate the love that you gave them, who doesn't know how to value what you're capable of doing. I see people sometimes and they say things like, I don't want to love because I don't want to get hurt. My thing is, I'd rather love someone and get hurt than not love and get nothing and feel nothing. Even though I don't want pain, even though I don't want you to get hurt, personally, I'd rather love and feel the pain of disappointment, feel the pain of a relationship not working and know that I tried than not try at all. Personally, I'd rather know that my love for someone was in and of itself a complete action. Whether they love me back, Whether they can reciprocate the love I have for them is a different consideration. But a failed relationship, a relationship that breaks up, doesn't mean you failed, doesn't mean that you shouldn't love. It just means you're not with the right person, and that's okay. Personally, I think the ability to fall in love with someone, with something as simple as a perfect cup of coffee or a book of poems you were reading the other day is enough to give people joy if you allow yourself to experience it. So fall in love with moments, fall in love with things, fall in love with feelings, fall in love with anything that gives you happiness and joy and helps you heal. Number 2, learn to accept love without expectation. I know how hard it is to love without expectation. Because we live in such a hyper-capitalistic country, everything we do consciously and unconsciously involves this idea of payback, of rate of return, as if we only do things because we get things back. But the flaw of that is that love is not a calculation. So even though this is really hard, incredibly hard, learning to receive love is the same thing as standing up for yourself. When you allow yourself to love without expectation, you are simultaneously sticking up for your right to love and to find love. You are sticking up for your right to be lovable, and you're defending your right to be happy. These are incredible things, but you won't get those things if you don't advocate for yourself. If you don't give yourself the right to make mistakes, if you don't give yourself the right to try different things, to find out what you love, to find out what gives your life meaning. When you learn to accept love, you're giving yourself the license to be happy. Next, by giving yourself the right to receive love, you are also reminding yourself that you deserve to be in love with your life, with something that you do, with the way that you think, with the person that you are, with the person that you've become. So receiving love is simultaneously permission to appreciate your life and to be in love with your life. The thing about learning to love without expectation, though, is that it requires courage. It requires openness. It requires honesty. And if you're too afraid to be hurt, you won't ever allow yourself to receive love. You're too afraid of someone hurting you. Now, this fear is completely understandable. We're all afraid of being hurt. But which would you rather experience in your life in the limited time that you're here? Would you rather defend yourself and not be open to the love and the joy and the pain of being human? Or would you rather have the courage to be open even if sometimes people don't appreciate that gift? Even if sometimes people don't give you all the things that you want? I can't answer this question for you. I can only speak for myself. But personally, I'd rather get my heart broken and cry and learn to love again than not love at all. But each of us has to decide what we're able to do and what we're willing to do. For me, the choice is pretty clear. Number 3, practice gratitude. Now, I know gratitude has become this really cliche thing in the 21st century, but I think we should consider cultivating it for only one obvious reason. I think we should consider it for our own happiness. That's a good enough reason to do it. When you appreciate someone, when you appreciate something, you're giving yourself permission to experience happiness. Our life is short, and as a species, our life on Earth is even shorter. Why would we want to waste our tiny little episode of life here by being angry and upset and hurt and frustrated? Of course, we have every right to feel those things. But our time on Earth is so precious. Why wouldn't we want to be happy and feel joy and be in love with a major portion of this life? What is the point of this existence if we spend most of it being miserable? Anyone who studies quantum mechanics and or alternate worlds knows that there are a million different versions of you that could have existed. You could have not existed. There could have been someone else, a different series of decisions. The simple phenomenon of being born into this world is in and of itself mathematically amazing. We could easily have not existed. Another species could have been born in our place. Our parents could have easily have not been born into existence. Someone else like them or different than them could have existed. And there are probably other dimensions and worlds where other people were born instead of us. But the fact that we were born, even though there are hundreds of billions of variations of who we could have been, or who else could have been born, means that we shouldn't take anything for granted. We should try to celebrate the simple miracle of being alive on this planet, in this solar system, for the tiny amount of time that we're here. At least that's what I think. Part of practicing gratitude means lowering your standards for happiness. Not people, but happiness. If the only way you can be happy is when you're a millionaire and you live in a 5-bedroom house and you live in Bel Air and you have 3 cars and 2 kids and your spouse makes a certain amount of money and you look a certain way and you're checking off all the boxes of your notion of success, then there's a really good chance that unless you were born rich, you will be unhappy for the rest of your life. But the problem isn't life. The problem is your checklist is incredibly high. Now, many people will say you should never lower your expectations. And there's wisdom to that, I think, when we talk about people and our right to be happy, healthy, loved, appreciated, supported. But I would argue that your standards for happiness should be much lower. We should learn to be happy over the simplest things. During various video interviews of some of the poorest people living in the Brazilian rainforest, there were people living in broken down homes who didn't even have windows. And when interviewed, some of them were the happiest people the interviewers had ever seen. Why? Because of their point of mind. It wasn't the material existence. It wasn't the money they had or didn't have. It was that the way they looked at life, all they needed to be happy was a beautiful sky, some delicious fruit, some tea, some company, some community, people to share this life with, some walks around their town, and that was it. This means that technically anyone could be happy in any situation if they wanted to be. And yet, in our developed country, we are deficient at being happy. We don't know how to be happy. In fact, if anything, I'd argue we're talented at being miserable. We compare ourselves to others, we look through Instagram feeds and we feel even worse about ourselves. We don't make enough money, we're not beautiful enough, we're not young enough, we're not old enough, we don't have the relationships we want. But fundamentally, we could be happy all the time. I know that sounds revolutionary, but maybe it sounds revolutionary because of how bad Americans are at being happy. You know what I mean? At the same time that I think we should lower our standards for happiness, I think we should also raise our standards for decency, kindness, self-awareness. I don't think we expect enough of ourselves and others when it comes to these qualities, but I think we should. We need to be more self-aware of how our mind works, as do others. Our partners, our friends, our family, they also need to be more self-aware of what's going on with them. Why do they feel the way they feel, etc. We need to raise our standards in terms of kindness, decency, tolerance, understanding, support. We should demand this from ourselves and from others. I think we have permission to sometimes cut off our relationships with people who can't follow a minimum level of decency, kindness, support, love, understanding. Number 4, when possible, try to live in the moment. I know this is like one of those giant Zen cliches. I mean, it's a huge Zen cliche. A massive Zen cliche. I know. Trust me, I know. But when possible, if we can live in the moment and be fluid, this allows us to be present. If we are fluid, living in the moment, then we stop trying to stop reality every time something happens that we don't like. This doesn't mean we forgive an awful thing that someone said or that we ignore it. But if we are living in a state of fluidity, we don't have enough time to be overly attached to the things we don't like because we're already moving forward. This is not possible all the time, and this is not desirable all the time. But I think it's a spiritual skill that will help us so much if we can just learn to embrace it sometimes. I know this is also difficult, but try not to get attached to happiness, to joy, to anger, and to rage. There are reasons why we get emotionally attached to these things. They define us, they give us energy, they give us the courage to stand up for the things that we need, that we believe in, and yet, at the same time, These things that give us that energy, that give us the self-confidence we need, can also handcuff us to something that we no longer need, that we no longer want. If we are simply living in the moment, we experience that moment of anger and rage, happiness and joy, but then we're able to move on to the next moment and be open to that, to receive it, to understand it, to follow it, to ride that wave as far as it goes. I think one of the most important aspects of learning to not be attached to things too much is learning to let things go that hurt us. All of us are attached to the things that hurt us. They define us, we reacted to them. Sometimes we've carried these things for 20 years, and we have that right, of course. But we have to ask ourselves, is it hurting me to hold on to the things that hurt me? In the beginning, the thing that hurt me, the person that hurt me, was the thing I couldn't let go of. That's fair. But am I hurting myself because I can't let go of this? Am I hurting myself because I cannot let go of this pain? It's worth considering when and for how long we have to hold on to our pain, when it teaches us something, when it instructs us about something about ourselves, when it helps us grow. But it's also worth considering when it's damaging us, when it's stopping us from growing, when it's stopping us from evolving, when it's stopping us from being happy. Only you know the answer, but those questions should be posed. If you can live in the moment, then you don't have to worry about saying goodbye to old happiness because you'll find new happiness in the future. Instead of spending all of your energy trying to repair something in the past that made you happy, you could simply let it go and find something new that makes you happy. Last thing, it's important for you to learn how to forgive yourself and others. Only you can decide when it's right, of course. That's as it should be. But realize that when you learn to forgive yourself for the mistakes you made and the pain you've caused others, when you learn to forgive others for the pain they've caused you and for the pain they've caused themselves, you're not justifying the things they did. You're not justifying the things that you did. You're simply allowing yourself to move on in your life. But here's the thing. Forgive yourself, forgive others for you, because it helps you move on in the world. Forgive yourself and forgive others to help you move on in the world, to give you closure. I know a lot of people who don't want to forgive others who hurt them because they feel like they're forgiving them. You don't have to forgive them if you're not ready. But ask yourself, am I hurting myself because I refuse to forgive this person? Forgiveness is not the same thing as morally justifying the pain that others caused you and the pain you caused others. It doesn't mean you're justifying it, ignoring it, erasing it. It simply means that you have acknowledged the things that happened were terrible, caused you pain, but now you're ready to let go. Now you're ready to move on. And for yourself. Number 5, remind yourself, in some cases, teach yourself that you can be happy in almost any circumstance. I know that sounds like a crazy revolutionary concept, but with some examination, I think it might be true. Now, you might not feel like you're able to be happy in every circumstance. You may not feel like you have a choice to be happy in every circumstance, and you may not want to be happy in every circumstance. That's totally understandable. There are many circumstances where being happy may not feel like the right thing to do at all. It might not feel appropriate. It might not feel justified. Trust your judgment. But here's why I think it's worth considering the spiritual and emotional strategies of personal flexibility. For one thing, as humans, I think we're more attached to our anger and our frustration and our sadness than we are to our happiness and joy. And there's a lot of good reasons why. This world is a shit show. This world is deeply traumatic. There are so many things wrong with it. But is your attachment to your rage and your anger damaging you in the long run? If it is, maybe it's time to let it go. Researchers interviewed a number of Cambodian soldiers after fighting against the Khmer Rouge. And some of the things that they went through were so deeply traumatic that the interviewers were surprised at how well emotionally and spiritually some of the guerrilla fighters were doing. And as it turned out, it had everything to do with their philosophy, with their point of mind. Right? If you don't think you're going to heal, if you don't think you're ever going to overcome your trauma, that's absolutely your right. But then you're probably not. And if you think that your trauma, while terrible, while unfortunate, while awful, was something that will always leave an imprint on your soul, if you are nevertheless convinced that you can get over this, if you're convinced that you will find peace of mind, then you will. This is not to suggest that trauma isn't trauma. What it means is we decide how we respond to trauma. We decide whether it's enough or not enough, too much or not enough. We decide whether the ways we respond to our trauma help us heal, help us move on, or whether they keep us stuck there forever. And there's no wrong response because it's hard to know what to do and it's hard to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, most of us want to be happy. Most of us want to enjoy our life and to live this life to its fullest. And it sounds heretical to suggest that you ultimately decide how you respond to your trauma. But the beautiful thing is, if it's true, then that means you can ultimately decide what is the best course of action for yourself. Now, that said, this is not a license to deny or belittle or minimize or erase or rationalize people's pain and suffering and trauma. All of that is real. 100% of it is real. But the point is, how we respond to our pain, how we respond to suffering, how we respond to trauma is actually up to us. And based on how we see the world and based how we live our lives, our responses are going to be radically different. So that leads to this corollary. What is the best way to respond to these things that helps me grow, that helps me heal, that helps me be happy? Those are the questions I think we have to ask ourselves. 6, and finally, look, the world might or might not be falling apart. The world might or might not be in flames. The world might be on fire right now as we speak. There could be a massive zombie apocalypse that happens in a couple months, or it might never happen. A comet might hit Earth, or it might just come dangerously close. We might learn to inhabit other planets, or we might not even make it that far. But the point is, we as human beings have such limited time on Earth. We shouldn't waste it. When each of us is on our deathbed, looking back, very few of us are going to say, yes, I'm so glad I bore a grudge for 20 years when my brother ate my tuna fish. Very few of us are going to say, I'm glad I did nothing and sat around my house. Most people on their deathbed say they wish they had traveled more. They wish they had cared less what people thought. They wish that people had been kinder to them. They wish they had been kinder to others. They wish they had been selfish for their own happiness. They wish they had fought more to be happy and to be in love and to enjoy their life. Whatever you do, whatever you decide, shouldn't it ultimately make you happy? Shouldn't it ultimately make your life have meaning? That's my thought. My thought is, we have such little time on Earth. You know, we're just this little planet in this solar system. We're one of a trillion solar systems. There's probably life on other planets, though we may or may not be able to find them. But nevertheless, our existence here on this planet is a miracle, and we have such little time. Shouldn't we do as much as we can to enjoy it, to appreciate it, to be grateful for it, to live our lives to the best of our ability, to be in love with this simple love song to human existence? Shouldn't we, at the end of the day, do as many things as we can with those that we love to be happy, to embrace our lives, to celebrate this tiny little spark of human existence? I don't know about you, but for me, I just feel like while I am entitled to all of my pain and suffering, as we all are, I want to do what I can. But personally, I feel like our existence is a tiny, little, mathematically improbable miracle. And I feel like we should do everything we can to enjoy it, to love our lives, to love others, to be courageous, to be open to this world, and to celebrate our tiny little existence on this planet for as long as we're here. That might be the most beautiful and simple way to show our gratitude to the cosmos, to the world, and to ourselves. Whatever you decide, I want you to know that I'm here for you, I celebrate you, I support you, and I'm wishing you much happiness and joy and love in this life. Thank you so much for watching this. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Peace.